Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Beginner Builds with myself, Jeff Sosa, and Frank DeLuca. Say hi, Frank.
What's up, guys?
So, in this episode of Beginner Builds, we're going to focus on one of my favorite styles and favorite masteries, Namekian Knowledge Mastery. Now, this mastery says that whenever one of your effects rejuvenates a card or shuffles a card during combat, you may raise your anger 1. And then after a Namekian Dragon Ball enters play under your control, you can destroy the top card of your opponent's life deck. And when you control one Dragon Ball, it cannot be captured by a critical damage effect. So in this deck, you're going to be running the Namekian Dragon Balls and just have the Namekian style. There aren't many characters that can run this style, but we have 3 suggested here. One of the cool things about this particular mastery is that all your cards, instead of having anger on them, are generally going to have rejuvenate or shuffle. And it encourages you to enter combat because that's when those effects would actually gain you anger. So,
Yeah. So moving on, we've chosen a kind of an interesting list of core blocks. We'll get into some of the suggestions as well, but what we feel is kind of the better cards. We have Namekian Energy Guard. This is a energy block that's going to shuffle the top and bottom card of your discard pile into your life deck. And of course, as Jeff was mentioning, Namekian's theme of shuffling cards back in your deck and rejuvenating puts you in the game longer for survival victory, on top of the fact that you're getting anger every time you do it. Really good on that end. We have, of course, another energy block, Namekian Buffer. This is a stronger rejuvenation effect, but it does gain banish after use. This is very, very staple. At worst, this has got a lot of endurance, so when you are taking damage, it stops you from being dealt critical damage. Our 2 physical blocks we chose here are going to be Namekian Knee Block. This has just got a great parenthetical effect. When you rejuvenate it, you can raise your anger 1. This opens up a lot of cool combinations with rejuvenation to kind of get random bursts of big anger. And not to mention, you can actually pass your turn and choose to rejuvenate this card out of your discard pile and get an anger off that passively as well without being in combat. So that is a really cool effect there. And then, of course, 3 Skillful Parry. If you're going to be running a Knowledge deck, you're probably going to run this card. This card is incredible. It's got a lot of endurance, just like Buffer. Similar effect to Buffer, but it also gains you 5 stages and is not banished after use. So very, very good card there as well. And then, of course, Hybrid Defense is going to be your staple bread and butter block. For Namekian, almost every mastery, you get to cherry pick any cards out of your pile. You go to the whatever your MP level number is. So of course levels 1 through 4, and you get to rejuvenate those cards. So really good at letting you selectively put back what you need for the matchup. Whoops, back in your deck there. And then of course we have Time as a Warrior's Tool as just a staple block. You're always going to be running this card. Just very, very good. And of course Namekian has lots of ways to kind of I smacked my camera there. Lots of ways to rejuvenate Time as a Warrior's Tool as well. So very, very powerful card in Namekian.
one side note about Skillful Parry, because you are running a Namekian deck, you do gain the Rejuvenate 3 because all the characters who can run a Namekian Mastery have to have Namekian trait.
Yes, sir.
And so that is always live in a Knowledge deck or any other Namekian deck you have, compared to running Skillful Parry and other styles where you might, or characters where you might only gain the 5 stages. So the next group we have are some setup cards in which you should consider in the deck, because you are running Namekian Dragon Balls, and Dragon Balls, as you play them, they can only be played during your planning step unless you get them out with some of these cards or use their effects using some of these cards. So you have Dragon Radar, search your life deck for a Dragon Ball, play it. Namekian Disturbance, where if you're running Namek Dragon Balls, grab a Dragon Ball equal to your level or less. Dragon Clan, where you can search for a Dragon Ball just like Dragon Radar, but if you are level 4, then you can search and play 2 Dragon Balls instead of just 1. Namekian Wish, a combat ender, where you can play it at the end of or during combat at any time, just finishes the round, and then you can rejuvenate how X cards, X equal to the number of Dragon Balls in play, which it would include yours and your opponent's. Namekian Growth. This is just a great card for Dragon Ball decks because it allows you to actually play a Dragon Ball from your hand, or you may just rejuvenate cards, which in this mastery just helps you gain more anger. And if you're level 3 or higher, you can actually use the setup in order to search for any other cards that you might need. Then you also have one other card that's not a setup, but it is very Dragon Ball oriented. It's Namekian Hurried Quest. where you can return a Dragon Ball in play to the owner's hand, so it can be under your control or your opponent's. And then you may use the immediate effect of a Dragon Ball that's on your side of the field and then return it to your hand. So just another way to activate those really strong Dragon Ball effects that are in the deck.
Absolutely. Of course, it being an event, we'll move on to the rest of the events that we feel are staple. Of course, Heroic Energy Sphere, between Time as a Warrior's Tool, Hybrid Defense, Hurried Quest, you're going to be wanting Heroic Energy Sphere to make sure those cards are safe, not to mention it's a great counter to a lot of other decks. It also does Rejuvenate 1 if you're a hero, so you will get an Anger for playing this card, which is really awesome. We have Namekian Chase. This card is some anti-anger tech, something that Namekian has a lot of cards that can kind of lower anger, and this is one of the better ones. But this card is really great because it allows you to shuffle your life deck, shuffle Dragon Ball back into your life deck to put any Dragon Ball you want back into play. What's really cool about this is your opponent could have captured one of your Dragon Balls, or they might just have a Dragon Ball they have played, and it allows you to either put that Dragon Ball back in your deck and essentially almost recapturing it by putting it back into play, or it allows you to get rid of your opponent's balls to get a free ball yourself. So very, very powerful card there. And it will give you an anger because you are shuffling cards back in your deck. And then finally, Namekian Silencing. This is essentially almost like another sphere. It can be sphered itself. It's a card that does take up an action, but it has a great parenthetical effect where if you rejuvenate it during combat, your Dragon Balls cannot be captured. So you are playing the 7 Namek Dragon Balls. It is another way to win the game by playing all 7 of them and owning them. So having this card around to in your discard pile to just be rejuvenated when you need to can help you win the game. So very, very good on that card as well.
Now moving over to some of the recommended cards as staple in your deck. First one being Namekian Right Throw. If your character has 2 traits or less, you may shuffle a Dragon Ball you control into your life deck in order to gain 2 anger. This used to be available to all Namekians, but as we go over Gohan's stack, you'll kind of see that gaining 3 anger in one combat was a little much for that character, so it got limited down to 2 traits or less. Namekian Max Will is your best anti-anger card that you can throw into the deck. Energy attack, where you may destroy up to 2 cards from your deck. Each card you destroy is -2 anger off of your opponent, so you can get up to 4 minus anger through just 1 card, which is really strong. Namekian Sidekick, another anti-anger card, but many kind of cool strategies you can play with this, either as anti-anger to bait out a block because you don't want them to draw a card that you just used, like for example a hybrid defense that you just used, then play this after blocking your opponent's attack and then have a chance to draw it, or any of the other cards that hit your discard pile that'll just be really good in any of your matchups. Namekian Rush, another physical attack, lowering anger, but gaining you an anger because it automatically shuffles back into the deck after use. So you always have constant endurance in the deck, as well as shuffling. So if you have some Dragon Balls at the bottom of your deck, then they can get moved about and hopefully draw them on your next turn. Namekian Direct Strike. This card can potentially be 2 anger, but it also gives you a +1 back onto the top of the deck, so you can plan all sorts of strategies with your other draw effects, or in planning for your next turn, or placing a card of endurance on top so you can prevent yourself from taking critical damage, and then your opponent getting a crit on you and taking your Dragon Balls.
Moving on, these cards are these are kind of what our consideration here, Jeff. This next set here. This next little block.
Yes, our tech.
And these are more like your techie cards. Not necessarily all of these are going to be staple for every build, but you can kind of float them in accordingly. We have up first, of course, the Namekian Grab. This card immediately is limited to some of the weaker power level wise MPs. Dende is an example of one that we brought out that could actually use this card. It does allow you to destroy a setup driller ally and has a little bit of anti-anger and endurance on the card as well. We also have Namekian Zone Pressure. This card is accessible by everyone. It does allow make you shuffle a Dragon Ball you control, but to use its effect, but it does allow you to banish a setup or drill in play. Namekian Double Strike. This is another card that's great utility. If your opponent's capturing your Dragon Balls, if they have Dragon Balls, I mean, you just are able to shuffle a Dragon Ball back in your life deck to use a critical damage effect. It's a very, very powerful effect there. Moving on to Namekian Clash, if you are kind of more physical beats MP, or you are running a lot of physical attacks in your Namekian deck, you might consider this card as another way, maybe over zone pressure, to banish setups of drills. We also have Namekian Resourceful Shot. This is another card kind of in the same vein as Double Strike that allows you to have a critical damage effect. What's nice about this card is it can sit in your discard pile, and should you need a critical damage effect in combat very badly, you can just banish a card from your hand to play it from your discard pile as an action. We also have Focused Assault. Wallbreaker is a card that exists that just completely shuts down a lot of knowledge decks, and so if you are a hero, it's a good idea to consider splashing in Focused Assault to beat Wallbreaker. It's also just a great card in general against a lot of decks running attached cards. So on that note, we also have Tug of War. This is another Namekian staple card, a freestyle staple card. It does shuffle your deck, it banishes an ally, lowers your opponent's anger, so it just kind of supplements a lot of this anger lowering that we've already kind of been trying to sneak in with this core list. Woof kind of does another thing similar, where it's another board hate card. Again, it's really kind of up to you with what you want to splash. This is a limit 1, but this does kill any sort of card that's going to be on the table, which is really nice. And you do have the ability with Namekian Knowledge specifically to be able to probably put this card in your deck really easily and see it again. Finally, we have After Image Technique. This is a card with a ton of text. It does a bunch of stuff. The main way to look at this card is that it's got an effect if it's in your hand, and it's got an effect if it's on the board. And depending on the game, you're going to kind of keep it in one place or the other accordingly. If it's in your hand, you can play it from your hand as an action in combat to shuffle it back into your deck to get yourself an anger, and then you get to top deck a Dragon Ball or attached card and play on top of the owner's life deck, so it allows you to reuse Dragon Balls, allows you to get around wall breakers. The power itself, if you play it on the table, you search your deck for a card, a named card when you play it and destroy it, and then you can use this as a blocking action in combat, and it does make it so your next attack that you perform that combat is hard to stop. So this does work really, really well in matchups where you need to really connect a certain attack through, or if you just want the extra protection as well.
A wall of text on that card.
Yeah, this is
so many different uses if you can remember them all.
Yeah, this is a bit more of a complicated card, but it's a good one nonetheless.
Yeah. So moving on beyond tech to just some normal attacks to help you level up and get some damage going in the deck, we have cards like Namekian Overhead Blast, where just an energy attack, if it hits, rejuve equal to your MP's level, but also if you banish it for endurance, your Dragon Balls can't be captured. We have Namekian Right Kick, if your MP runs a lot of named cards, or if you want to put some named cards into the deck, then you have this option as if it hits, then you can grab those named cards and put it in your hand, so extra actions, extra things to do. Namekian Aerial Knee, if you're looking for a way to gain stages and rejuve at the same time, equal to your levels, so as you level up, this also gets stronger. Namekian Headlock, if you have 2 traits or less, you can get selective rejuve. And what we mean by selective rejuve is that instead of just taking the top card of the discard pile and putting it under the life deck, you actually get to pick the card, which is one of the strengths of, for example, Hybrid Defense. Hybrid Defense, you get to pick any of the cards from your discard pile, whether it be styled or non-styled. But Headlock's just another way to pick very specific cards to put back into the deck. And then if it hits, you gain some anti-anger as well. Namekian Chin Grab, a potential 2-anger card. Nothing else more to say about it. And Namekian Wild Blast, just an energy attack. And that if you have no cards in hand, you can activate the Desperation effect, which then just makes it a beefy 9 life cards from your opponent. So you are more likely than not to crit.
Oh, yeah, perfect. Well, anyway, so we just got Jeff reconnected here. To move on to our final column of consideration attacks, we have Namekian Salvo. This is a really beefy energy attack. It's got a little bit of anti-anger on it and does give you a critical damage effect. What's really nice about this card is it loses it costs 1 less stage per Dragon Ball you have in play, and so again, this incentivizes you to run the Dragon Balls and play them. Of course, we'll be doing that in Knowledge. We have Shoulder Slam and Devastating Blow. Both these cards are anti-anger options. They don't really do a lot of damage for a fair amount of the Namekian MPs, but people like Gohan, for example, or if you're running a lot of stage beat cards, this is a nice supplement to your anger hate should you find yourself needing it. Namekian Protective Posture. This card can kind of almost be seen as a staple. Really, it's your choice if you want this card or if you want Energy Guard. Energy Guard, of course, puts 2 cards back in your deck, but not itself. If you want to make sure that you always have an energy block handy in deck, Protective Posture rejuvenates itself, so very, very nice there. Overtime is a reason why you might want to run Protective Posture. This card does a lot of cool stuff. It does give you an anger. It does destroy cards off your opponent's deck, equal to the number of Dragon Balls in play. But then it also lets you cherry pick through your deck for any styled energy combat card and place it in your hand. So that means that a block or an attack. And so that's where you might start seeing things more like Namekian Protective Posture coming into your deck as well. But also Namekian Overtime, just a great deck thinner at worst. And then finally, Namekian Resistance. If you are in a meta where you really fear physical beats, this is a great card. It kind of got supplanted rather by a Skillful Parry now that Skillful Parry exists, but this is a card nonetheless that will give you an anger by rejuvenating at the end of its effects. It does allow you to filter your hand to you banish a card from your hand to go grab a styled shield card. So this card can grab you any sort of block that you want, preferably like a hybrid defense, and put it right in your hand at the cost of a card from your hand. So very, very good on that one as well.
And of course, with any beginner builds video, we always like to give you a few MPs that you can build for the deck and give you a place to start. And so our first character is Piccolo. For Piccolo, we like to recommend that you run all of the newest stack from Super. Not because the older levels are bad, but again, this is a beginner build. We want to give you characters that are going to be easy to use as you learn the decks. And as we go through, and some of the older Piccolo levels get a little crazy. And really up to you on how you want to play the deck and what kind of character you want to use and attacks you want to use. But in a beginner build, we recommend all of the new one. It flows really well, has lots of anger, and it's really focused on grabbing his name cards, such as Special Beam Cannon, Piccolo's Lethal Chop. Not so much Weighted Clothing, but Weighted Clothing is a great anger card that is added into the deck. And then you also have Piccolo's Multiform. And so as you go through the levels, you're mainly searching out Beam Cannon and gaining anger outside of combat at first. Go to the second level, just more reasons to rejuvenate your name card, so his level 2 power becomes a 2 anger attack. And then you can, if it's prevented, you can even grab more Special Beam Cannons. Level 3 lets you rejuvenate some of those name cards from all various zones. So again, that doesn't quite gain you anger because you are entering combat, but it does make sure that your name cards are going to be in the deck for the regular power, which is search your life deck for a name card. And now it's not just Special Beam Cannon. You can grab any of the name cards to help. And then level 4, you can search any zone for a named card, place it into your hand, and rejuve 3. And then also with these other bonuses as infinites help reduce the cost of your name cards and even making some of them focused, as well as reduce the cost of even some of your regular attacks. Weighted Clothing is really nice because if it's in the discard pile, you can banish it as an action to gain 2 anger. So just as it comes off as damage, it gives you a reason to gain 2 anger. Not many people use it for the regular effect, but you could if you need to. Piccolo's Special Beam Cannon, energy attack that rejuves 1, so it's an anger and knowledge mastery. But also if it hits, you have to name 2 cards and you banish 1 copy of each card from your opponent's life deck. So it's a great way to sculpt out cards that you don't want to see that you know your opponent has, or maybe guess a few cards at first and then see what else is in the deck and constantly have knowledge of your opponent's deck. Piccolo's Lethal Chop, as in our suggested cards, you want to make sure that you're teching against Wallbreaker, you're teching against board, just kind of different things that Namekian has to have other things for, but Lethal Chop's great because you can choose a card that's in play and shuffle it back into the deck. It could be your own card, like your own Dragon Ball, or it could be your opponent's drill or your opponent's setup or the wall breaker that your opponent attached to you, and shuffle it back into the deck. And then even if you don't choose to target wall breaker, it in of itself is either 6 life cards or 6 stages for unprevented. So that damage is going to go right through. Piccolo's Multiform, you can use this when you perform any attack to draw a card, but if that attack happens to be named, then it'll deal an extra 2 life cards and gains remain 1. Just a way for Beam Cannon or Lethal Chop to even deal more damage.
Moving on, an MP very dear to my heart is, of course, Dende. He's a really fun MP stack based around really just rejuvenating and playing Dragon Balls. Whereas Piccolo's a little bit more aggressive, throwing attacks. Dende is mostly about searching your life deck on the level 1 to kind of set your game pace up. He does require Dragon Balls to be in play for most of his effects. So you are going to want to be, of course, running with him, though, Earth Dragon Balls, as we'll get into in the name cards. But of course, his level 1 allows you to search your life deck for a freestyle setup, non-style setup, and put it into play by shuffling a Dragon Ball. His level 2 allows you to shuffle a Dragon Ball for a critical damage effect. His level 3 allows you to draw a card and rejuvenate or gain stages. He also starts to attach Dragon Balls to him, which become relevant on his level 4. And then his level 4, of course, allows you to play Dragon Balls from the Banish Zone, and then Dragon Balls that are attached to your MP cannot be captured. Getting into his name suite, Dende's Creation is really the big card that you're going to search for with his level 1. So ideally, you're going to drop a Dragon Ball into play, go into combat, shuffle that ball away with level 1, and do Creation. And Creation, what it does is it's going to banish all the Earth Dragon Balls that you have in play and that are in your deck. And then at the start of every one of your planning steps, you get to go take one of them and put them into play. And you play them. So you get to use them for their effects. You can access Dragon Balls from the Banish Zone this way. Of course, his level 4 allows you, if you get up there and you've creationed already, it allows you to go grab a Dragon Ball from there as well, so you can ball out faster. You can use the Dragon Balls for their effects. Just a really cool stack, and that, again, just mostly based around every one of his levels rejuvenates up until level 4, so you're healing yourself a ton. Healing Aura. This card is a really great card. It's almost like an orange card in a sense, where it allows you to just go grab a setup or a styled drill from your discard pile and place it into play. So this will allow you to grab any of your board cards that end up hitting your pile that you aren't able to rejuvenate and put them into play. And of course, as we mentioned, you have all these great ball searching cards up in here, as well as some of these other staple setups. Halt, if you play Dende, he is a Namekian and God trait, so you're going to want to play Halt. You can use this to either kind of take a spot up of like a Heroic Energy Sphere, or you can add it on top of Heroic Energy Sphere. And this card, what it does is it is either a sphere-like effect for either a setup or an event. And what's great about this card is even if this card gets negated by some sort of effect, it'll still shuffle itself into your life deck after use and give you an anger. So pretty wild. And then finally, Namekian Duck. This is another one of those cards that if you're 500,000 or less on your power levels, which we are, you get an anger, and then this card shuffles back into your life deck, so it's a 2 anger block. This would probably supplant Knee Block or go in addition to these other blocks we've mentioned.
Another side note about Dende's Creation, as well as Knowledge Master, you don't have to run the Namekian Knowledge or Namekian Dragon Balls. Yeah. So twister there. Yeah. You can run the Earth Dragon Balls, you can run the Super Dragon Balls, really you can do either, but if you do run the Earth Dragon Balls, then Dende's Creation does give you that added benefit. You could run the Namekian Dragon Balls, have ways to banish them from the deck and many other Namekian cards, and still use Creation to get those balls from the Banish Zone.
Yes.
Our third character that we suggest is Gohan. And we recommend that you either run the Fusion stack from set 13 or the newest Super stack from set 16. Both have some fair amount of anger gain and pros and cons. The Mystic stack is the most straightforward. If you're just looking to get into Namekian and you want to just know what it does, then this stack's really great. The level 1 by itself can gain you 3 anger and 1 combat easily just without singular attack. A good level 2 that gains you another 2 anger, because not only does it rejuve, but it also gains you anger as you throw physical. The level 3 has some cool things where if you can choose up to 3 style cards in your discard pile, your opponent picks one of them, you put that one in your hand, the rest get rejuvenated. And level 4 just has a very strong gain 4 stages, rejuve 4, draw a card. You're not going to die anytime soon.
This is very wild level 4. Very, very wild.
And your attacks cannot be stopped by events while adding extra damage.
Yeah,
it's a lot.
It's a real chonker of a level.
You could, if you want, you could splash in some of the super levels. Again, level 2, you can search your discard pile for a card and shuffle it. And if it hits, you gain an anger, so still 2 anger, just like the other level 2. Level 3, if you want to go more aggressive, instead of just searching your discard pile and rejuvenating 1 and maybe getting a good card back, you could go for this focused energy attack that gives you a temporary desperation effect. And if it hits, you gain anger. And then level 4, if you just want to go pure damage and banish the board away, then you can go that instead of being more defensive with your rejuvenation and gaining stages. Otherwise, we suggest you run Gohan's Power Punch, one of the best named cards in the game, where you can gain 2 anger, and if you advanced with it, this attack cannot be stopped. And so you get some beefy stage damage in, as well as making it so you're going to go through any block your opponent has if you level with it. Gohan's Backlash, at the moment, this is limit 1 in tournaments, but it's a great way to banish allies. But also, if you get hit with a wall breaker and you can't get off level 1, then you can go ahead and use Backlash to get yourself up to 3. Maybe peel wall breaker, get some cards back, depending on what level you run, and then if it's by then, you could just go back down to 2, and at least you've made it off of your level 1. Or if you're level 2, you can always go up to your level 4, get some more damage in, and then go back to 2 if you don't think you will anger out in that current combat. Gohan Safeguard is a card to consider. With its desperation effect, it's a little hard to run if you aren't running the super stack, but it's just prevents any damage from an attack, so not a full-on block, but if you can prevent damage, then you'll prevent all of it. And then if you're desperate, you may destroy a setup drill, ally, or attach card. This could be your own or it could be your opponent's, but you have to be desperate, which means you have to have no cards in hand. But you can trigger that effect more often than not if you are running super levels 2 through 4, which have ways to help you get and keep a desperation going.
Yes. So guys, these are kind of our 3 recommendations as far as Namekian Knowledge goes. Each of them kind of does their own thing. Piccolo, of course, like more of the energy life card beats, Gohan a bit more of the stage beats, but you can go an energy route. And Dende is just more of like a play of Dragon Balls for utility and heal yourself route. So each one of them offers pretty good synergy with a mastery. Of course, anything that rejuvenates and shuffles cards is great in general, as you'll find out. And so I think Namekian Knowledge has kind of always been the mastery that beginners get given, and I think it's a great way to learn the game. You have generally most knowledge decks can win the game by Dragon Ball Victory, MPPV, and Survival pretty well. So if this is your first time playing or first time back, it's always good to play a knowledge deck. Jeff, I don't know if you have any other thoughts on knowledge.
I agree with you. Knowledge is a great deck to start out with. If you're wanting to learn the game and you're wanting something fun, a lot of people really like this deck and just how versatile you can build it. Unlike most of our other builds, even our core recommended cards is smaller than it will be if you watch some of the other videos. So even after some experience, after you've learned the game, you can really customize this style of deck to be how you want to play the game, which can be really play into well as you as a player, where then you can go into a tournament, you can feel confident about your deck, and your deck will not look the same as anyone else's.
Agreed. Well, guys, thank you for tuning in. As always, this is Beginner Builds with me, Frank, and Jeff over here. So, yeah, guys, if you're interested, keep watching and checking out the other Beginner Build stuff. And Jeff, as always, thank you.
Thank you. Happy building.
Yeah, take it easy, guys. Peace.